They found his body 3 days after the market opened back up. A stockbroker, corner office, mahogany desk. He didn't jump from the window like the stories say. He just sat there, staring at the ticker tape until his heart gave out. The coroner said it was a heart attack, but everyone in that building knew the truth. He died from the realization that everything he thought was real, everything he built his identity around, was nothing but numbers on a screen. And when those numbers disappeared, so did he. This is the story they don't teach you about 1929. They show you the bread lines, the dust bowls, the men selling apples on street corners. But they don't tell you about the psychological earthquake that happened first. Before the banks collapsed, before the soup kitchens opened, there was a moment, a single, crystalline moment, when an entire generation realized they had been chasing ghosts. And in that moment, something shifted. Not just in their wallets, but in their souls. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to admit. We are living through the same con. Different decade, same scheme. The system has convinced you that happiness is a product, that fulfillment comes with a price tag, that your worth is measured by what you consume. And just like those speculators in 1929, you've built your entire identity on something that can vanish overnight. The difference is, you haven't had your wake-up call yet. Let me paint you a picture. It's October 1929. Herbert Hoover is in the White House promising a chicken in every pot. The radio is playing jazz. Flappers are dancing in speakeasies. And on Wall Street, something magical is happening. Money is multiplying. Not through labor, not through creation, but through pure belief. People are buying stocks on margin, which is a fancy way of saying they're gambling with money they don't have on companies they don't understand. And it's working, until it isn't. The crash didn't happen in a day. That's the myth. It happened over 4 days in late October. Black Thursday, Black Monday, Black Tuesday. Each day, the market lost billions. And with each loss, another layer of illusion peeled away. By the end of that week, $30 billion had evaporated. That's $400 billion in today's money. Gone. Not stolen. Not hidden. Just gone. Because it was never really there to begin with. But here's where the story gets interesting. Here's where the 1929 mindset was born. Because when the illusion shattered, when the fake wealth disappeared, people were left with a choice. They could wait for the system to rebuild itself, to promise them the same dream again. Or they could build something real. The ones who survived, the ones who came out the other side with their humanity intact, they chose the second option. They stopped waiting for external validation. They stopped measuring their worth by their bank account. And they discovered something that our consumer culture has spent the last 100 years trying to make you forget. You don't need money to live a rich life. Let me be clear about something. I'm not romanticizing poverty. The Great Depression was brutal. Children went hungry. Families were torn apart. People died. This isn't about glorifying suffering. This is about understanding what happened in the minds of the people who endured it. This is about the coping mechanisms that turned into life philosophies. This is about the difference between scarcity and simplicity. In 1930, if you walked through any American town, you'd see something that would look alien to us today. You'd see neighbors sharing meals, not because they were friends, but because they had to. You'd see children playing games that cost nothing, street hockey with sticks they carved themselves, marbles made from clay. You'd see women in church basements, teaching each other how to make $1 stretch across a week. You'd see men in garages, fixing cars that should have been dead years ago, because buying new wasn't an option. And here's the paradox that breaks our modern brain. Many of these people, when interviewed decades later, describe the Depression as the most connected time of their lives. Not the happiest, but the most real, the most human. Because when you strip away the consumer distractions, when you remove the ability to buy your way out of boredom, You're left with the only thing that actually matters: other people. There was a family in Ohio, the Hendersons. Father was a machinist, lost his job in 1931. Mother took in laundry. 3 kids, ages 6 to 14. They lived in a 2-room apartment above a butcher shop, and every Friday night, without fail, they held what they called a parlor evening. The father would play harmonica. The mother would read stories from the library. The kids would perform little skits they'd written themselves. No admission, no cost. Just a family, creating their own entertainment, because that's all they had. Flash forward to today. How many families do you know who spend Friday nights together? Really together, not just in the same room staring at different screens. How many people do you know who could entertain themselves for an entire evening without spending a dime? We've outsourced our joy. We've handed our happiness over to corporations and expected them to sell it back to us in convenient packages. The 1929 mindset isn't about deprivation. It's about creation. It's the understanding that you are not a consumer, you are a producer. You produce ideas, stories, skills, connections. But somewhere along the way, the system convinced you to stop producing and start consuming. And that switch, that mental shift from creator to consumer, that's the real poverty. Let me tell you about Edward Bernays. Most people have never heard of him, but he shaped the world you live in more than almost anyone else in history. He was Sigmund Freud's nephew, and he took his uncle's theories about the unconscious mind and weaponized them for capitalism. In the 1920s, Bernays pioneered the field of public relations, which is a polite term for mass manipulation. Here's what he discovered. You can't sell products to people who only buy what they need. Need is finite. A man needs 1 coat, 1 pair of shoes, 1 hat. If everyone only bought what they needed, the economy would collapse. So Bernays invented a new concept. He convinced America that products weren't about utility, they were about identity. You don't buy a car to get from point A to point B. You buy it to show the world who you are. You don't buy clothes to stay warm. You buy them to express yourself. This was revolutionary. This was evil. This was genius. And it worked. Before Bernays, consumption was about function. After Bernays, consumption became a psychological act. He turned shopping into therapy. He made you believe that the emptiness you feel inside can be filled with things. And when those things inevitably fail to fill the void, when the new car doesn't make you happy, when the designer clothes don't make you confident, the system has a ready answer. You bought the wrong thing. Try again. Keep spending. The crash of 1929 temporarily broke this spell. When you're worried about feeding your family, you don't care about expressing yourself through consumption. Function returns. Reality returns. And in that return, people rediscovered skills their grandparents knew but they had forgotten. There was a movement during the Depression called Make Do and Mend. It started in England but spread to America. The basic principle was simple. Before you buy something new, exhaust every possible way to fix, repurpose, or create what you need. Women would unravel old sweaters and re-knit them into new patterns. Men would resole shoes until the leather wore through. Then they'd cut patches from old boots. Children wore clothes made from flour sacks, and their mothers would compete to see who could make the most beautiful dress from the plainest material. This wasn't just about saving money. This was about reclaiming agency. Every time you fix something instead of replacing it, you're making a statement. You're saying that you are not helpless. You're saying that you don't need the system to solve your problems. You're saying that your hands, your brain, your creativity have value beyond your ability to earn and spend money. Compare that to today. How many people do you know who can sew a button, repair a torn seam, fix a wobbly chair? We've been trained into helplessness. Something breaks, we throw it away and buy a new one. We don't even consider repair as an option because we've been conditioned to believe that our time is too valuable, that learning basic skills is beneath us, that we should focus on earning money and let specialists handle everything else. But here's the trap they don't tell you about. When you outsource all practical skills, you become dependent. And dependence is expensive, not just financially, but psychologically. Every time you have to pay someone to do something you could have learned to do yourself, you reinforce the belief that you are incomplete, that you are insufficient, that you need the system. The 1929 mindset flips this script. It says that self-sufficiency is wealth, that the ability to meet your own needs is freedom, that every skill you learn is a brick in the wall between you and desperation. Let's talk about food. In 1935, 75% of American families had a vegetable garden. They called them victory gardens later, during the war, but during the Depression they were survival gardens. People grew tomatoes, beans, lettuce, carrots, not as a hobby, not as a lifestyle choice, because they had to. And something happened in those gardens, something unexpected. People discovered that growing your own food changes your relationship with eating. When you plant a seed, water it, watch it grow, harvest it, cook it, you experience a chain of creation that connects you to the earth in a way that buying a tomato at the supermarket never will. You taste the difference, not just in flavor, but in meaning. Today, we have organic markets and farm-to-table restaurants where you can pay premium prices to feel connected to your food. But the 1929 mindset says that connection shouldn't cost extra. It should be the default. The idea that we pay other people to grow our food, process it, package it, ship it, stock it, so we can buy it and eat it while staring at our phones. This is insane. This is a broken relationship with the most basic human need. I'm not saying everyone should become a farmer. I'm saying that the complete disconnection between effort and reward, between creation and consumption, this is a relatively new phenomenon in human history, and it's making us miserable. There's a concept in psychology called flow state. It's when you're so absorbed in an activity that time disappears. You're not thinking about the past or the future. You're completely present. And research shows that people in flow state report the highest levels of happiness and life satisfaction. Higher than when they're relaxing. Higher than when they're being entertained. Higher than when they're consuming. You know what creates flow state? Making things. Fixing things. Growing things. Learning things. The exact activities that the 1929 mindset embraced out of necessity. These are the activities that modern psychology says make us happy. But we've been convinced that we don't have time for them. We're too busy working jobs we hate to buy things we don't need. Here's a story that illustrates the insanity. There was a survey done recently asking people how much money they would need to feel financially secure. The average answer was twice what they currently make. They asked millionaires the same question. Same answer. Twice what they currently make. Do you see the trap? The goalpost moves with you. There is no amount of money that will make you feel secure if you're playing this game, because the game is rigged. The system needs you to feel inadequate. Your dissatisfaction is profitable. The 1929 mindset broke free from this trap because it had no choice. When money disappears, when the game board gets flipped over, you have to find a new game. And the game they found was simpler, harder, and infinitely more rewarding. The game was called living. Let me paint you another picture. It's 1933. Franklin Roosevelt is on the radio giving one of his fireside chats. He's telling America that the only thing they have to fear is fear itself. And in a small town in Kansas, the community center is packed. Not for a concert, not for a movie, not for anything that costs money. It's a quilting bee. 30 women, sitting in a circle, working on a quilt together. They're talking, laughing, gossiping, teaching the younger women patterns their grandmothers taught them, and at the end of the night, They'll raffle off the quilt to raise money for a family whose house burned down. This is community. This is what we've lost. We've traded quilting bees for social media. We've traded front porch conversations for Netflix binges. We've traded potluck dinners for DoorDash. And we wonder why we're lonely. We wonder why depression rates are skyrocketing. We wonder why, despite having more wealth and more stuff than any generation in history, we feel empty. The answer is simple. We've been sold a lie. The lie is that happiness is a product, that connection can be purchased, that meaning comes from outside yourself. And we bought the lie so completely that we forgot how to live any other way. But the 1929 generation, they remembered. Or rather, they relearned. They rediscovered that the best things in life aren't things. They're experiences, relationships, skills, stories, and all of those things, all of them, can be created without spending a dime. Let me give you a practical example. Entertainment. Today, if you want to be entertained, you open your wallet. Movies, concerts, streaming services, video games. We've been trained to believe that we need to pay for fun, but the 1929 mindset says otherwise. They played cards, not poker for money, but games like bridge and hearts and rummy, games that required skill and strategy and social interaction. They told stories, real stories, about their lives, about their families, about the town gossip. They sang, not professionally, just gathered around a piano and sang songs everyone knew. They danced, not at clubs, but in living rooms and community halls, learning steps from each other. And here's the crucial part. These activities weren't just cheap alternatives to paid entertainment. They were better because they required participation. You couldn't be passive. You had to engage, contribute, create. And in that creation, in that engagement, you built connections with other people. You built skills. You built memories. Compare that to modern entertainment. You sit alone in a dark room, staring at a screen, consuming content created by people you'll never meet. When it's over, what do you have? Nothing. No new skills, no deeper relationships, no memories worth keeping. Just the vague sense that you wasted your time and a slightly lighter wallet. The system wants you passive. Passive consumers are profitable. Active creators are dangerous. Because once you realize you can make your own fun, you stop needing their products. Once you realize you can fix your own things, you stop needing their services. Once you realize you can grow your own food, you stop needing their grocery stores. Every act of self-sufficiency is an act of rebellion. This is why the 1929 mindset is so threatening to modern capitalism. It's not about going backwards. It's not about rejecting technology or living like it's the 1930s. It's about recognizing that the psychological shift from creator to consumer was a deliberate manipulation, and you have the power to shift back. Let me tell you about a man named John Steinbeck. You probably know him as the author of The Grapes of Wrath. But before he was famous, during the worst years of the Depression, he was broke, living in his father's cottage in California, surviving on fish he caught and vegetables he grew, and he was writing. Every single day, he was writing. He said something in a letter to a friend that perfectly captures the 1929 mindset. He wrote that he had no money, no prospects, no security. But he had time, and he had stories, and he had the ability to put words on paper. And that, he said, was wealth. Not wealth in the future tense, not wealth if he got published, but wealth right now, in the present moment. This is the shift. This is the revolution. It's recognizing that your ability to create, to think, to connect, to grow, these aren't just consolation prizes for not having money. These are the actual prizes. Money is the consolation prize. Money is what you settle for when you give up on living a real life. I know this sounds radical. I know every fiber of your being is screaming that I'm wrong, that you need money to survive, that bills are real, that responsibilities exist, and you're right. In this system, you do need money. But the question isn't whether you need money. The question is, how much power are you going to give it? The question is whether you're going to build your life around acquiring money, or whether you're going to use money as a tool to support the life you want to build. The 1929 generation didn't have a choice. Money failed them. The system collapsed. They had to build lives without it. And in doing so, they discovered something beautiful. They discovered that human beings are incredibly resilient, incredibly creative, incredibly capable of finding joy in the simplest things. We have a choice. We can wait for our own crash, our own moment when the illusion shatters and we're forced to relearn these lessons, or we can choose to learn them now. We can choose to step off the treadmill. We can choose to stop chasing the next purchase, the next upgrade, the next thing that promises to make us happy. We can choose the 1929 mindset, not because we have to, because we want to.